The following is an encore presentation of stories from the Dooralong Transformation Centre. You're tuned to 94.9 Rima Central Coast. We're talking to Lee this morning from the Dooralong Transformation Centre. We met him very briefly before the 10 o'clock news. Lee was explaining he's been at Dooralong since February. Hopefully within the next week or two he will graduate. He's feeling in a much better place than he was before he got to Dooralong in February. And what sort of place were you in before you got to Dooralong? What was life like before Dooralong?
Addiction, Phil, brings you to your knees, you know. I've been in addiction now for 8 years on and off. And this isn't my only addiction in life. Like, you know, 20 years ago I was in an opiate addiction. And in 2 years of that addiction, I was on the methadone program, and in 2007 I got off the methadone program, so I was quite clean for a few years, and that helped me think that I could stop this methamphetamine addiction at any time, you know, thinking I've beat opiates, I've got off the methadone program, because not many people get off the methadone program, they're on it for life, you know.
So your mindset was, I've done it once, I can do it again.
Exactly, you know, and that's exactly what my mindset was. And because it did take a lot of strength to beat that, you know. I mean, when I got off the opiates, I remember the doctor telling me, he goes, you're optimistic going about it this way if you think you can do it. And I'm thinking, I have to do it. I have to do it for my job at the time. And that was more important to me than the addiction itself. So I made sure that I beat it. And I did, you know. And it left me with anxieties. I've had anxiety my whole life, but I didn't know the cause of it. Now I do, because of things we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, we'll come on to that shortly.
But, so now I know there's anxieties, but so you've already got anxieties. Getting off the opiates, and I did a rapid detox, and that leaves you with an anxiety on top of an anxiety. So any little sort of issues, whether they were work pressures or whatever they were, they just put demands on you that you weren't ready for, you know. And in 2010, when I sort of was getting pressured again in life and in work, you know. They were trying to draw blood from a stone. That's when I found myself leaning towards amphetamines so I could cope with the workload. I could work with some of the issues I was dealing with. I just lost a family member. I'd had a relationship breakdown. I had a house that I was trying to buy. The purchase didn't go through the way I wanted it to. And all these things just sort of chip away at you and break you down until, you know, you end up finding yourself in this place lost in addiction, you know. So
you, after 7 years being clean, you sort of took up, but you stepped it up again, didn't you? You went to methamphetamine. I
went to methamphetamine, and as I said, I thought it would be something that I could turn off at just like a tap, you know, at any time I wanted to, because I thought I'd beat the strongest thing possible that was hard to get off, which being the opiates. But no, I think I had a real psychological attachment to the methamphetamine. It gives you the confidence that you want. It gives you a false sense of ability, you know. It gives you all the things that you didn't think you were capable of, all the things that you feared. It took them away, you know, and it killed any pain that you had, and it stopped all the fears, you know. So, you know, so you're living this life of addiction in amphetamines, and you don't see what it's taken away from your life until it's all gone.
You see the positives. It promises you an anxiety-free life, a pain-free life, you know, in a sort of cruisy mode, but there's a price to pay.
There is a price to pay, and that price is everything, you know. By the time you're brought to your knees and you're praying to God for help, you know, because that's where it brought me to, you've lost everything. You've lost all your possessions. You've lost all the people that you love around you. You've lost the closest ones that support you, you know. You end up in just really dark places where you just think, how has this happened, you know, and you've got to look at yourself and go, it was me.
Can you see it when it's actually happening? Are you aware of the fact that the drug is destroying relationships, it's turning people away, it's ruining your life? Do you have that self-awareness? Or
I don't think so. No? You know, like you're in such a dark place and such a place that you can't find a way out of, that sometimes death is the only answer, you know. I've had a couple of suicide attempts. I tried to gas myself in a car once, and like still to this day the hospital couldn't tell me how they found me in someone's front yard. I technically should be gone, you know. But once
Hey,
again,
Lee, I'm just going to pause there because we've got some really lovely friends down at Lifeline that, when we mention these things, which, it's part of your life and it's part of everybody's life. Suicide affects so many people. But look, if you are affected by anything that's said, then please give Lifeline a ring. 13 11 14. They're beautiful people there. They will listen to you. They will hear you. They will sort of point you in the right direction. But yeah, you were telling us, Lee, that this drug just it takes everything.
Yeah,
you said, everything.
And my own mother didn't know what to do. She called Lifeline herself because she was that lost in how does she care for her son.
Yeah.
She doesn't have the answers. She needed to reach out to somebody to get help for herself,
Yeah.
But look, I found myself in hospital again. Found myself back in a psychiatric ward. But it's a starting place. It's a place where you can get a couple of days up of not using drugs, and then start planning things from how can I beat this? How can I get past it all? And you can start planning and putting in place some things, because you can't get into a rehab overnight. Like as much as you might be ready, and it's at a critical point in your life where you need the help.
So
rehab can be 4 to 6 weeks away.
So at this point in your life, you've come to an understanding that you really need to do something about it. You really need to sort of address this.
I was on my hands and knees. I was in so much pain. I was cutting myself to stop the pain, and I was reaching up to the stars. I was asking for God's help to come and save me, because I was so lost. I didn't know which way to head, you know. But he came and he gave me enough courage and strength to be able to recall some of the things that friends had told me, some of the phone numbers friends had given me, because it was an old childhood friend that sent me the number for Dooralong probably a year ago, and I said, I've got to get in touch with this place, I've got to make contact, So there's
a good lesson there, isn't there, for those people who are supporting a family member or a friend who's in addiction. Give them numbers that can help. Lifeline have got those numbers if you haven't. Give them those numbers, and like you remember some of them. You've made a note of some of them. So they may not have been used immediately, but they have been stored away in your wallet or your possessions, and when the time is right, you pick up the... Is that what happened? You picked up the phone for Dooralong?
I recognise that the person who gave me the number, once upon a time, was in as deep or even darker place than I actually was. And he got himself well and back on the path,
Yeah.
And he's now living independently. He's got his children back in his life. He had all the good things that I could only dream of at that time.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, look, if he can do it, I can do it. We grew up together. We've got the same sort of belief systems in place. We've got the same codes installed in us.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that a brother's passed the message on, and I'm going to give this a shot. I've got to find out what this place has to say that other rehabs haven't had to say, because this is my first attempt at rehab. This is my third attempt.
Yeah.
I've done sort of psychological-based rehabs before, CBT-based technique rehabs that leave out the one important thing, which is the spiritual side of it, the spiritual connect. Having that faith just in God gives you faith back in yourself. It gives you faith back in something might work. It gives you a belief system again,
Yeah.
And you may have had this belief system many years ago, but you've disconnected yourself from it in addiction.
Yeah.
So to get back to that place of believing in things again, that's what saves you.
And we're talking to Lee. He was being honest in telling us about his addiction to meth and amphetamine, but things started to happen for him when he booked himself into Dooralong in February. And just before the break, he was telling us that he's sort of become aware that he wasn't just a mind and a body. There was a spiritual dimension to him as well. So you've really got a lot out of Dooralong, haven't you, Lee?
I have, Phil. It's
changed your life, hasn't it, really?
It has, and that last song was appropriate because, we're told to surrender every day. It's part of the 12-step program. It's about not acting on your will anymore and acting on God's will, because your will's only got you in trouble. The thoughts that come to mind when you're not in a place of good thinking only lead to another bad decision, you know. And Dooralong's really helped with that spiritual... I've had a spiritual belief in the past because, as I said to you earlier, I've witnessed some things that, I call them miracles, that give me a spiritual belief that there's something more out there. And so it allows me to believe there's something magical in the universe.
Something
you know?
bigger than the rest of us put together.
Well, that's it, you know, and they always talk about a higher power at Dooralong, find your higher power, and, you know, my higher power is a God of the universe, you know, because he's just created too much magical, majestic things, beautiful things that I'm in awe of as to what they are, and I know I don't have the answers to even get myself well, so I don't have the answers to how this world's universe is created, but I'll have faith and belief in the man that does, you know.
It seems a bit too good to have just been an accident.
Absolutely.
You're out there at Dooralong, you must see that beautiful wildlife and the countryside around you every morning and every evening and just sort of marvel at it.
It is. It's pure serenity out there. We're blessed to live in this five-star resort that's been turned into a rehab. The Salvos have done a really good job in stepping up what rehabilitation is about. The place makes you feel special. The place makes you feel like you're worthwhile. You know, you're in these beautiful surrounds. You know. The food, everything you get served, you know, they serve us 3 meals a day. They give you all your basic needs. You know, like a lot of people out there will complain about their minimum sort of pay they get every fortnight, like $55 to live on. But you don't need anything. No. You know, I think the smokers are the ones who suffer more, but because they can't afford to support their habit. But at the end of the day, they even try to get you off smoking. You know, I've given up smoking in the last month since I've been there. They're giving me gift after gift, and that's all I can be just forever thankful for. But
you mentioned a really important gift they gave you was to, just by what they do, and probably what they say as well, just to let you know that you are important, that you do matter, and people do care about you, which is a reflection of God, of course. He knows that you matter, he loves you, he cares about you, and Salvos follow that through.
And that's such a critical thing, because like when you're in the depths of addiction and in that dark place asking for God's help, you've lost everything that you are connected to. You've lost everything who did believe in you. You've destroyed all that, and the only way to make amends, see, I always thought amends was actually like telling people you're sorry and wanting their forgiveness. But, you know, you've said sorry 1,000 times. That sorry doesn't mean sorry anymore. So, you know, I learned that making amends is actually living your life by God's will, making those right decisions. You know, what would God do? What would Jesus do in this situation? I'm going to make that decision. And for every good decision you make, something better comes out of it. And I'm just so thankful for getting that understanding back in place, that I've practiced it, and lo and behold, slowly good things are coming back into my life. You know, whether it's the relationship with my mother. You know, my mother, all she wants to see from me in life is the core beliefs she installed in me as a child, brought to fruition as an adult, and lived in happiness and receiving joy. That's all she wants to see. And unfortunately, the last 8 years, she's seen none of that, because it's just been misery and pain and pushing people that you love away. Thank God she's a beautiful person and stood by me all the way through it, even though I've taken her to the edges of hell and back. She's never given up on me, and that never giving up is basically what caused me to say never give up. You know, there's another core belief that you run with, and you know, as I said, it's picturing 8 months down the track. It's a hard thing to comprehend, but when you've got nothing left anymore, you've made a botch of it. You really got to start reevaluating everything about your will that's led you to that point. You know.
So it sounds as if you were open to the idea of, you know, the teachings of Christianity. You're open to the idea of chapel night and going to church on Sunday. Yeah,
absolutely. Like I went there, as I said, in a dark place, but I had a spiritual belief to begin with. That's why I cried out to God when I was in my depths to save me. I've witnessed miracles through spiritual connections and spiritual awakenings that I've had in the past that make me a believer that there's something bigger in the picture than just the reality we know. So I was blessed to have that gift given to me. And when I got out to Dooralong, they run day courses and things like the Alpha Group.
Oh, yes.
You know, so, you know, I didn't know anything about Christianity or what it took to be a Christian or anything really about the teachings of Jesus. I knew nothing. As I said to you earlier, like because of my dad dying when I was young, I've become a hater of God because I thought he took my father away. But now I've matured, and I've told you, like Big Tobacco took my father away. I've witnessed miracles, so I believe in a higher power. I thought I'd better check this stuff out, you know. I can't be judgmental about it. I'm just being ignorant otherwise, you know. And I don't want to be ignorant in life any longer. I want to understand things. And the best thing for me was these were people that when, especially in the Alpha Group, the guy who runs it, he was a non-believer himself. You know, he started university as an atheist, non-believer, making fun of the sort of the people following Jesus and believing in God. But then he tried to debunk it, and the further he looked into it, the further he found stories that he couldn't debunk.
Yeah.
You know, and seeing these academics who have done the research and done all the hard work for you gives you the faith that, you know, some of these stories have got meaning and purpose to them.
Yeah.
And it allows you to start believing and having faith yourself, you know. I don't need to sort of go through all the... I don't need to learn Greek and, like, transcribe myself. I can have belief in these... faith in these other academics, that they are academics, and they've broken it down.
That's their job.
Cleared it up for me.
Yeah.
And bring me the simple text. And, you know, it's only a good word. You can only take good messages from it.
Yeah.
There's nothing deceptive or nothing of bad intent that the message, that the word that you get spoken to, whether it's from your pastor, whether it's from your spiritual worker, whoever you're working with, the words that they read from you from passages, they're all of good meaning.
Yeah.
You know, you just got to look at what is the meaning behind the sort of the story and take something from it, you know.
So now that you've become a Christian, is it anything like you thought it was going to be?
Well, it's, you know, it's the faith is giving me a place to practice being a better person from. It allows me to pause before I act upon things and think what would somebody else do, like Jesus or God, before I make a decision, you know. As I said, I seem to make bad decisions in the past, running on my will led me to dark places. I'm now running on God's will, and it's only bringing me good things, you know, and of late it's even bringing me better and better things towards the end of my sort of recovery journey in rehabilitation. And the things are landing for me in place that are going to be the good things for a good start in transition back to the real world.
Lee is still in the studio. He's got some good things happening in his life at the moment, thanks to the Salvation Army, thanks to God, of course. And he's really optimistic for the future. As we were saying earlier, Lee hopes to graduate from Dooralong in the next week or two. So what's happening in the next chapter of your life?
You know, well, like, hopefully I'll be moving to transition housing, which is based here in Erina on the Central Coast. I haven't lived independently for 8 years. You know, I've always relied on my mother to be there. After my relationship breakdown in 2010, I had to move home with her because I didn't have a place to stay. And I've pretty much been in addiction since then, and Mum's had nothing but drama to deal with, you know, and I haven't been independent. I've been codependent. Yeah. Codependence is one of the things we learn about in Dooralong. It's something I recognise now, and I can't wait to be independent again, living life on life's terms, as they put it, and following through with the recommended things like going to meetings. We've got to go to meetings in transition housing. We need to go to meetings twice a week. We need to keep our spiritual connect with attending sort of church on Sunday, whether that's here or back in Sydney when you're visiting friends and family. But you just got to stay connected and keep the good things, the good meaningful things in your life, you know. Yeah.
So how long will the transitional housing last?
That's last for 6 months.
Oh, that's quite a long time.
It's a good period of time to allow you, you know, you've got to save up for a bond for a place, you know. It's so hard getting into a rental market these days when you've got nothing. You know, so to have these things, we're blessed by the Salvation Army to have these things available to us. And it's not easy to get into. There's only like 4 rooms. There's 2 properties they have. They have one here at Erina, which I think's got 4 rooms, and another one at Morisset, which has got 4 or 5 rooms. And, you know, so the rooms aren't available all the time.
No, of course not.
But if you're lucky enough and you can move into that transition, it's a great place to restart your life.
And do they have a caseworker there?
There is somebody who manages the house and keeps you in check and keeps you accountable.
That's good,
you know,
isn't
and you need that early on in the piece. And where I'm going to at Erina, my old cabin mate from Dooralong's there, and he's actually doing the suggested things. He's back working again. He's actually doing a solid recovery. And I want to be around those people that are doing a solid recovery, because surrounding yourself with like-minded people will keep you well.
And you can all sort of keep each other accountable and give each other hope and encouragement when the tough times come, as they will, with the ups and downs. And to have a mate there who really understands what's happening will be important.
I've seen a lot of people go back home after program and they just fall back into their old group of friends. They fall back into hanging around the old people, places and things that they were familiar with, and next thing you know, it's back in your life before you know it again. You know,
we've heard people.
And as much as I don't want to think of this as running away from my problems, I mean, I've worked hard to beat the problems. This is like a new beginning, and
this is taking care of yourself. It's not running away. It's taking care of yourself.
It is, and like that. And, you know, in time, like once 1 month is down, 3 months is down of living by myself, I think, well, I could do this. Yeah. I've taken the bull by the horns, and I've taken control, and I'm actually living life on life's terms, you know. And that's all your friends and loved ones and people that know your story, that's all they want for you, you know. Mm. And hopefully with all that good energy you put out there and the good energy you get back, it allows you just to start living happily with joy in your life again, you know. And I just want to have those beautiful things in my life again.
What does Mum think about all that's happened for you?
You know, it's been very difficult for Mum to understand addiction because, like, she hasn't come from a place where drugs were part of her world, you know. She's never even tried drugs. So to understand what a drug is and what it does to you, it's very difficult for her to relate as to... she's from another generation, you know. Yeah. And I'm sure a lot of people get that disconnect with their children. They can't understand why they get into it, you know. But unfortunately, they are a part of society today. It's a thing that only seems to be getting worse and worse, and, you know, I think places of influence should be doing better things to educate people about how to work with your children, because giving up on them is not the answer.
And your mum's, your mum's always stood by you thick and thin.
She's the poster child, and this is my adoptive mother, and I only found out she was my adoptive mother in the recent years, but she's the poster child for unconditional love, you know, because that's all she's ever given me, and then that's given me the strength and the respect that I've got to give back, you know. And I know she wants to see the moral code and values, that belief system she installed in me as a child. She wants to see me just live it to the best of my ability, independently, and living life again, you know. Hopefully one day getting back in your children's life, hopefully one day, you know, starting new relationships, hopefully just forever growing in a good way.
A step at a time.
A step at a time.
And in God's timing.
A day at a time.
And in God's timing.
And in God's time, absolutely.
Yeah. Look, Lee, it's been wonderful to talk to you. You're a very positive person. We're so pleased that you're graduating in the next week or so. It's been a lot of hard work, but it seems to be paying off for you. So God seems to have got his hand on your shoulder. He does.
He's ridden with me for a while. I've got special friends that ride with me as well as angels above. They're always looking out for you, the path that you're taking, and I've just got to, like, you know, be aware of it and look out for the signs, you know, and
listen to God. I think the word for today, I was listening to the word for today about 8:30, and the point was being made that God still speaks, but it's not usually through thunderbolts and lightning. It's usually just through a whisper into your mind, or a random thought comes.
It is.
But we've just got to listen for him.
You know, and that's what happened with this job that I'm looking to getting into in the next couple of weeks. You know, God spoke to me. Look at Seek online about now. Something might be there, and something was there. You know, it's something from my past, something that I want to reconnect with, and it's something that's going to hopefully bring good things to my life, you know. And if it doesn't work out, well, you know, I know now God's got a plan for me. It's only of good things, because God doesn't want anything bad for you. He just wants you to know you're loved. He wants you to enjoy the life that you're given, and it's just so good to be back in that place where I can accept those things and live with it, you know. And looking forward to the future.
You've been listening to an encore presentation of the Dooralong stories, which can be heard live every Wednesday at 10 a.m. and repeated 8 p.m. Sunday and 1 a.m. Wednesday, right here on 94.9 rema.cc.